Hello and welcome back to Reality Check. We have another special conversation for you this week. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. Give this episode a thumbs up. We appreciate the feedback as well, so leave us a comment. And welcome aboard to our regular subscribers. Thank you for returning. Dr. Evas is away and we are attempting to fill in her big shoes. And so I found a dangerous substitute, Junior Kwebiha. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Not to fill doctor's shoes, but
to fill your own shoes.
To fill my own shoes. They're still also big for me.
You are scared.
Well.
All right. Junior is back. If you have been a regular here, it's not the first time you're seeing him. How would I describe you?
A man that God is helping.
A man that God is helping.
Yes, still on the journey, doing a couple of different things. But simply put.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but you're passionate about certain spaces.
I am passionate about marriage. I am passionate about men. That has also now led me to a space where we're talking young boys as well. Because a bunch of fathers are realizing, even if we fix it with us, someone has to do it for our sons.
That's true.
So that's extending down to our sons as well. I'm an entrepreneur. I love business. And a mentor in some spaces. Okay. A very small space, but yeah.
Okay. So this month, as it concludes, has been Men's Mental Health Month or Men's Health Month. You can put the words together the way you see fit. And there's been such a huge focus on many platforms on men's mental health, something that is not often talked about because we expect you to be macho and strong, supporting your families, supporting your children. But there's been such a spotlight on supporting men in their mental health. The theme actually has been fighting the gap, which means, again, it has not been talked about a lot. First, I think from the way men are wired, but also from the expectation that we have of men in general. So I felt like it was very important for us to have this conversation on men and their mental health vulnerability. We'll kind of bundle all of those things together.
Yeah.
So since you are here, you are speaking on behalf of the male gender.
Yes.
I hope you represent them well. But why do you think it's very difficult for men to talk about their mental health?
So I think, one of the, should I call it a principle that I want to use is we are here today because of certain seeds that were sown or not sown a while ago.
Sure.
So we have to realize that we have to sow different sets of seeds now to get a different harvest later. And many of us growing up, why hasn't it been spoken about? Mental health globally, whether it is male or female, is really a recent thing.
Yeah,
it's true. A recent thing. So that's one. It's a recent thing. It's not something that has, if you look at our forefathers and everything, men have to provide. That has been a consistent theme throughout generations. Mental health is recent. So everyone is trying to get a handle of it.
That's true.
Whether it's male or female, still trying to get a handle of it. It doesn't help that men we struggle with. So one is that it's a fairly young concept. Yeah, people are still trying to learn what that is like. There are many organizations that will not pay the light of day when you talk about mental health. There are many people who are saying mental health is a smoke screen. It's not really a problem. It's for the weak. It's for the soft. So society as a whole still hasn't holistically gotten a grip of the topic mental health. Now, when you bring it specifically to men, that becomes a bit more complicated because of the way we are wired, because of what has been said to us, about us, and by us for generations. Society says, look, men don't cry. Men are not weak. Men don't talk. Or how we say certain things is very different. So a lot of that has just shaped how we end up being where we are. We struggle with communication. I think it was last year or year before into last year, we went into a training session. And they have this thing called the feelings wheel. If you Google it, it's pretty easy. The feelings wheel, I think it's called. So the moderator had this thing up. It was an online session. She had it up and she said, so how are you? It was a management of about 20 people. So how are you? So it keeps helping you define how you're feeling, as they're concentric circles. And she went, okay, I am this, when you go further. And after about 10 minutes, it was the icebreaker. And the ice had not broken. It was getting, and she said, look, I am concerned that everyone is in a bad space. The company was looking good, but everyone was in a bad space. But no one had gotten to a point of articulating it. It was a predominantly male management team. No one knew, even I did not know how to articulate what I was feeling until I looked at the words and I said, okay, that's how these things come together. And this is, so we also don't know how to articulate. We might know how we feel, but we don't know how to articulate what it is. You know? So I think for me, those are some of the main things that I would say. There are a couple of others. You don't know where to go. You don't know who to talk to. You don't know who to trust. You know, you feel like you're the first person that has ever dealt with it.
Which is not true.
Which is not true. Yeah. And because of that, you just don't want to talk about it. But also, men are fixers.
Yeah.
I can fix this. It's there must be a tool somewhere. There must be a way. There must be a toolbox that I can do it on my own. So I think that makes it very difficult for us to deal with mental health. So you cannot deal with what you don't face.
That's true.
Mental health is also difficult to measure. So it's difficult to tell when you're progressing or how far down a bad road you're going or how far you're coming back. So some of those things just make it hard for us. It's almost like it's intangible. It's difficult for us to hold, to grab. So we struggle with just a lot of that.
Yeah, you're very right. And I think in society, trying to figure out this whole mental health conversation, I've been seeing some reels online where people are like, oh, we are becoming a sensitive generation. You know, people with the slightest anxiety, it's like, oh, I must take a mental health day. Or, you know, I'm struggling with some small depression. No, that's the way life is, you know. So while there are people who are championing this conversation, mental health, there are also those who are like, no, let's not overdo it.
Yes.
You know, and then it doesn't help that, like you said, it's just difficult to measure.
Yeah.
How much anxiety do I have for you to know that
you should be dealing with it?
I should be dealing with it.
But we're also dealing with people who have learned how to milk it. Huh?
That's true.
The people who have learned how to milk it quite well. Or, you know, I can't come in today. You know, I am feeling...
not myself.
I've personally struggled with adjusting with the generation coming after us from an organization perspective. I worked with a few young people the last couple of months, and I'm like, it's more expensive for me to manage you because I can't deal with this whole, today I'm not feeling it, today can I work from home? No. There is work that has to be done. Please get it done.
Yeah.
So there is that whole, the people who have stretched the truth.
That's true. That's very true. I think with every movement, even like the Me Too movement, we're seeing men who are being accused falsely because there's this umbrella movement of, you know, we are bringing men to account, so to speak. So if somebody wants to take advantage of that, they'll come under this movement and take advantage of it. Are you open to being vulnerable with us? Have you ever faced, you know, some kind of encounter? Which one was your first, maybe? Emotional, mental struggle, and maybe how did you respond?
Let me see. I think I probably use one that is more recent. And it got me to understand it differently. I was having a session with a gentleman. He said, oh, you know, we'd like to have a conversation. I'm like, well, that's all right. I'm happy to talk. And this was an elderly man, over 55, very good job. By very many standards, way above average across many things. Provision, earning, status, whatever it is. Educated. And this guy said, look, I am feeling a lot of rejection. And I was like, okay, let's talk about rejection. I pick out my book and then he starts mentioning something. And I'm like, I actually, I identify with it. You know, he started saying things and I could finish his sentence for him. And that was one issue. I said, okay, what else? He spoke out, I also identify with, I understand that, you know, last week I was talking to, and after about 30 minutes, I was like, wait. Do I need this session? Is he actually dealing with me?
He's helping you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I actually realized I was dealing with rejection and I did not know. And so I sat back and I was saying, look, I've been a little bit edgy. Everyone at home is walking on eggshells. But I couldn't put a finger on why. And I kept saying, it can't be that everywhere I'm going, people are like, if you don't dot the I and cross the T's, you're
You're
finished.
going to be in trouble.
So then I realized, but I couldn't articulate it before that point. And by God's grace, I've started with a couple of people. I have got access. I can pick up the phone and call Dr. Evers.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a reason to. I did not know.
Yeah.
So I did not know what I did not know.
Yeah.
So then I said, but where is this coming from?
Uh-huh.
So I got a piece of paper and I tried to figure out how does this come here. And I realized, I started a business 12 months ago. I have written maybe 20 applications for funding.
Yeah.
And I have received rejections.
Yeah.
And they are all the same email.
Yeah.
They are all legally advised, well written, but it's exactly the same. Due to the number of applications we get, it's exactly the same. When you read the first two sentences, you know
what they're
when you're
saying.
going to get it, it opens with congratulations. The minute you have to read two sentences, there's a rejection.
Yeah.
And they have gone to the bank and they are asking me questions, which for me are obvious. So it is 1 year, and then you've started this, and this is not working. Now I am spending the bulk of my time in this business. Then you come back, and so suddenly rejection is all around you, but you don't know. You're just dealing with, I had a difficult day at work, a no is a no, I'll just dust it off, and tomorrow I'm going to be up and everything. And then I'm like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
But I did not know. I did not have a blueprint to reference. Yeah. I did not have. So I went back and I told my wife, I said, you know what, man, I think I am dealing with this issue.
Yeah.
So there's an issue of seasons. There's an issue of seasons as well. Rejection is not so much an issue when you work in the corporate space. KPIs, it's not your money you're investing. Whether you work or you don't work, you're going to get your check at the end of the month. Yeah. You understand? That season you don't. Now, when you leave that season, the weight of provision, the weight of having it together, the weight of figuring it out, the weight of pushing through, all that weight hits differently.
Yeah.
But it's almost like you've been dealing. Provision, you were expected to provide or contribute while you're in the corporate space and while you left. Most times we look at it's just provision, but the circumstances have changed.
That's true.
You expect to protect, to defend, be available, attend all everything, but the circumstances have changed.
Yeah.
Now that's a different season.
Yeah.
If you're not mindful of what's happening there, you could actually deal. So for me, that was one thing that kind of got the light bulb. Was like, there is a change in season. Now, a few weeks ago, when I figured that, I'm like, I started talking to my wife, I said, look, babe, I probably need you to say, well done, a little bit, stretch it a little bit more than usual.
Affirm me a bit,
affirm me a little bit more. I don't want to ask for it, but, And she said, okay, I
can do that.
And you remember, let me just digress a bit. Remember that clip that you put on Instagram where Ben was saying, pass by and touch the man.
Yeah.
I think I was probably one of the first people to comment, because I was like, you don't understand the weight of that statement.
Yeah.
I actually need to call him and tell him, my brother, thank you.
Thank you.
Because what he was saying is, I want you to tell me that you still see me.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me that I am busy, but I still have time for you. I still have
time for you, yeah.
I want you to tell me that I'm still attracted to you, and I still, there are so many things that simple act, but many of us might not say it.
That's true.
That's true. So a few weeks ago, we go on a road trip with some of my boys. It was one of the things of, guys, let's go and let us spend time. It's supposed to be a day trip. So we'll spend 7 hours. But we miscalculated the trip, so we ended up spending the night. We're going to Hoima, so when we get there, like, man, we got here at 5. Wisdom dictates that at our age, with the risk and exposure, you understand? We have so much to lose trying to prove driving back on a bad road at this time. So I call my, I say, Daddy, let's go. And he says, no, there's someone, you go. So we go to my dad's place in Hoima. And somehow we started talking. Then we realized we are all dealing with the same problem. And we are struggling to tell our wives, because our wives didn't understand when each of us, but we have the same problem. Yeah. And it's a season problem.
Yes. Yes.
So that's another thing. Is for me, that was one example, but for me, it was also a season issue. It's a season thing as well. You know, very many times I've had wives talk about, oh, is that when talk about sex and rejection? Wives are like, is that all you guys think about? You know,
Is it though?
Is it? I thought about the answer to that question. Yes, you understand?
It is?
It is. You
Oh,
know,
Lord.
but the thing is that 20 years ago, when you just got married, rejection. If you say no to your husband,
It's okay.
you know, it's all
Whatever.
right. At this point in time, it's a very different thing.
Okay.
It's a very different thing. And what does that do? Then you see men around our generation, or around this between 40 and 50, 60, they begin to say, me, I'm not going to beg my wife. I'm not going to do this. For me, it's almost like a passive aggression.
Yeah.
But it's not coming from the act more than it is about what it communicates.
Ah.
Hey, you're going to reject and you want me to come and beg. You understand? So there is that element of that passive aggression, quote unquote. It's not right. But again,
But it
my principle of starting this is we are where we are now because this is how we were raised.
Yeah.
There are things by very many standards. My father is a good man. I love my father to death. But there are some things he never said to me.
Yeah.
There are some things I cannot say to my son.
Because
The person I might be talking about is his mother. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
I cannot, I have to allow him see his mother as his mother.
Correct.
So there's some things there's some things that as a man, I will find difficult to tell my son because the person that I am talking about is my son's mother.
Yes. Yeah. And he has a perception of his mom.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there are some things where he's going to grow up and he might just bump into it.
Yeah.
So.
But you won't have volunteered that information.
Yes, we have to figure out now, it doesn't take away from the fact that that conversation has not been had. Nor does it mean that it doesn't have to be had. It's just that we have to find a different way.
True. Okay.
Yeah.
Since you've brought up your son, let's talk about the way men are raised and what they hear about being a man.
Yeah.
And I'm putting that in quotes because it's all debatable.
Yeah.
What did you hear, or what kind of messages did you hear? And again, from your peers and from other people that you've related with, what messages are those that were passed on about what it means to be a man that have, like you put it, the seeds that have been planted, that we are seeing the harvest of that in today's man?
Yeah. I think but first I have to say a man is a man.
Okay.
Biologically, a man is a man. Let's not get things twisted. Let's not create some gray zones. It is what it is.
True.
Yeah. I think that because over the years, men have not taken their rightful place inside, and I'm generalizing, but for the most part, men haven't taken their place. Women have been forced to take a certain role.
Sure.
As much as you want, and the heart of the wife is in the right place. But you are not fully equipped to raise the son.
Yeah.
Why? A mother carries the child in her womb. Then a mother carries the son in her arms. Then the mother will tell the son to sit. As a mother, you must know when your son stops sitting on your laps and begins to sit by your side. You must know when your son has to start becoming a protector. There has to be a transition. You need to know when to kind of almost like push him towards his father. Or push him away, or begin to tell him certain things that you are not conventionally wired to do. So it's an intentionality. I'm saying that because sadly, when the generation where there are very many single moms. Yeah. So there are things, number one, men biologically, a man is a man.
True.
Yeah. Two is responsibility. We didn't say it that way, or we didn't hear it said that way. It was said, oh, you have to provide, or you have to defend, or you're the last person that sleeps, or it was said in different ways. But ultimately, what should have been said was, it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
Now, in the absence of that, what has happened today? Men don't take responsibility, they tick the boxes of what some of it is. But why are you complaining? I put food on the table.
Yeah.
And we ignore responsibility for an act. Okay, but I bought for you a car. What more do you want?
Yeah.
The responsibility of faithfulness, the responsibility of provision, the responsibility of presence, it kind of gets watered down because we're just saying, provide.
Yeah.
You know? So there is a bit of a disconnect. So a man is a man. Men don't cry. My dad never said that to me.
Is it implied?
But my elder brother said it in more ways than one.
Oh, he did?
My elder brother. He's 10 years older than I am.
Yeah.
The one that I follow is 10 years. And he beat me.
Yeah,
He beat me
really?
on... Yeah. I am surprised we talk.
Really?
He really beat me. And we've laughed about it over the years.
Yeah.
You know, we have a good relationship now. But I guess for him, he was like... As a last born, he saw my mom, quote unquote, baby me when I was young, you know, and he didn't like it. First of all, because he thought he was going to be the last born.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
And then you came along.
And then I came along and took that. But also he just beat me because he would see something that was wrong and he would say, no, you're not going to get away with that.
Yeah.
So there is that. He said, be a man, do this and do that. There's some lessons that I never got told, but eventually I learned along the way. The saying, "Omusajja oyanga musajja," you understand? I did not explicitly, when I look back, I saw my dad doing. But he did not explicitly say it to me. I saw my dad try out all sorts of things.
Yeah.
He did different businesses until he settled on something. Now, it took him a while to do that. But I also learned you have to, I don't say hustle. Hustle is if you're trying to just guess and put things together.
Yeah.
But you really have to push. You have to endure. You have to work hard. There's resolution. It's your responsibility doesn't get passed down because you failed in one venture. So hustle is almost like, I'll hustle, but if the hustle doesn't work, it's okay. Responsibility, the back ends with you.
That's true. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so I would say those are some of the things. Men don't cry. No one explicitly said that. I've had people say it. Look, I have a different opinion, but you know,
Is it an issue of wiring? Because my son is 10, and I have seen him cry in a way that I don't want to be seen that I'm crying. He literally does this. Like, and tries to block the tears.
Yeah.
But you can see he's visibly upset about something.
Yes.
And it triggers something in me because I'm like, I've not told him it's not okay to cry. Like, none of us, not Ben, not myself. But maybe it's a wiring in men that you can't be crying out loud like a baby. So I don't know if it is something that is innate.
It definitely is. We are territorial as men.
Yeah.
You'll see boys fight for toys and space. It's my toy. Even if he has 3 toys, he'll fight for the 5th and 6th. So it is there. It is we are created. God created us with that. It's within us. So what they don't know is how to process it.
I think that's it.
Yeah, what they don't know is how to process it. And I think that's where we come in as fathers to help them along. This is how you're going to deal with it. But also around school and society, you get those. You see, today, with the growth of population and everything, you have someone else's father has told him, boys don't cry.
It's possible.
So if your son cries at school, there are certain things that they are going to tell him that, but boys don't cry. So there's that narrative that is just around because, and that's why it matters how we raise our children, because your child is going to sow a seed into someone else's child as well at school. So there is that whole thing. I think there is also just there's a lot more conversation about women take your place, women's place at the table and everything. So if you cry, you might lose your place at the table.
Lol.
You understand?
Wow.
So there is that additional pressure
that
does not allow, because this place is for people who can hold their own.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and that's why I keep telling people that I don't have I think that, yes, has there been a skew around men and women? Yes, there is. Do women need more opportunities? Yes, I agree with that. But you shouldn't leave the men behind, because we're going to be on this seesaw. It will be for the next 20 years, it will be women. Then we'll say, oops, we forgot the boys. And then you go back and we keep just swaying every 30 to 40 years. So we have to be intentional to get the right balance as we do that, not to leave the men or the boys behind.
Yeah. I want to ask you about what true strength looks like for a man. But before we do that, what are some of the overlooked contributors to mental health issues in men? And I think you kind of alluded to some of them.
Yeah.
But what are we seeing from your interaction with your with your peers? What are some of those pressures that they hint on as this thing is stressing me, or this thing is bothering me? It could be in the marriage setting, it could be society, at the workplace. What have you heard?
I think one of them is that the fear of judgment. Look, men are going to be judged, but you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. So that fear in itself is definitely a pressure. How comes I don't know how to figure this out? Because we are just fixers. How comes I don't know how to figure this out? How comes I can't? That is one. Two is, okay, if I can't, then who do I ask? Who do I ask about this particular issue? Then you don't know who to ask. One of that thing of getting a band of brothers together, people struggle with that. Do you get the right band? Are you really going to be vulnerable with them? Even where we do have those bands of brothers, do you really have the right conversation? Sometimes it's good to say, we've got a band of brothers. It sounds nice, but what's the depth of the conversations? What is the intensity? What's the level of accountability? That again begins to vary as a second step. Financial, without saying. Like I said, seasons, financial pressure 20 years ago is very different from where I am now.
Right now, yeah.
It's very different. And there is that element of putting that financial pressure in context of times and seasons. You're looking at now, it is university, then it's going to be just pressure around, how are my kids doing?
Yeah.
Are my kids doing well? Results have come back from people who have been doing checkpoints and everything. And the pressure of how did that person's child do against how did mine do? You don't want to do it, but you don't want to compare, but you just find yourself you understand? Am I raising my child right? Do they seem like they're on the right path? Have I done everything that I should have? Have I provided as much as I have? Not just the financial, but presence and setting them up for that. Do I have it together in the conversations around the next level of schools? I was talking to a friend of mine over the weekend. I've never felt more unprepared in my life. And this person talking about, they have been, 3 years they've done this, that's enough. They're now going to go to Israel for another 3 years. Then, the plan is for them to go to the US and that. So we've done this. The first one finished there. This is now the second one. The third one I'm going to reduce from 3 to 2 years.
Okay.
You understand? That pressure is, even if you have everything figured out, that pressure begins to hit a bit differently. Everything and the pressure is not, am I prepared now? It's a mix of pressure and frustration. Pressure in, do I have this ready? And then the frustration of, did I do it wrong?
The foundation.
Did I do it wrong? So that is it. And then the pressure of so many unheard conversations, undone things, that now you realize, if I have to correct the amount of work that has to go into it. So I will say that some of those pressure, one of them is the frustration itself. Frustration itself hits us quite differently. Family. At this age, your parents are getting old. You're going to more funerals of parents. You have to be there because many of these are close friends, family. That you begin to stare down. Am I ready? Have I set up my children for that? Whether you like it or you don't. 20 years ago, our parents were like 60. Now you are touching that age where your parents were.
That's true.
You're talking wills. You're talking burial grounds. You know,
Yeah.
you're talking about lineage, you know, or you think about, oh, my grandparents were buried that side. If my parents have said they want to be buried here, are we going to disintegrate our lineage because of, you understand the conversations? That pressure now begins to change certain things. The pressure of, if I die, where and people have to go, are they going to bury me at my father's house? We don't have a house in the village. You understand? Some of those things now are weightier than they were before. And you don't know why suddenly your husband's talking about driving into the village and let us put a small house. You're saying this house which you're talking about is 5 million shillings that we don't have or that we could use elsewhere. But there are some of the pressures that I would say would definitely be there. I think it's an element of how much more runway do I have? 20 years ago, I was saying, you know, I'm young in my career and everything. Right now, the runway to retirement is not that long. It's not that long.
A few years.
You've got kids coming in, able to do. I did something interesting with AI this past weekend. I did a deep research on, which was, I tried it out, and the result of it was like, wow, this, I have been dreading to do this for the whole week, and this thing has done it in 1 hour.
Wow. And that's where we are now.
That's where we are now. If I choose not to use it, someone else is going to use it. And I'm going to compete against them. All that pressure, am I still relevant? And that's now where, from a marriage perspective, the spouse becomes a key pillar. Am I still relevant in the workplace? When I come home, am I still relevant? All that pressure, I think, begins to address, you know, and then it's also an issue of, what do I touch, what do I leave? What do I prioritize ahead of the other?
Considering the amount of time I have. Yeah, so relevance is a big deal for men. Is that what you're saying?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
No matter the age?
No matter the age. No matter the age, relevance is definitely important. I need to be seen. I need to be relevant. I need to be a contributor. And I think certain times people will kind of stretch it. Are you always going to be the one to always provide the most? Maybe not. It's times and seasons. Sometimes you have everything together. Sometimes you don't. You know. But are you relevant? I think that conversation of, oh, does your wife earn more than you? And it's an issue of, are you really relevant?
It's not about the, does she have more than I am?
That is smoke and mirrors. The real issue is that if you don't have money, you're not relevant.
You can be dismissed.
Yeah, you can be dismissed. You don't have a voice in this conversation.
Oh, Lord.
Because you really don't have, other than money, which now I have, your contribution is?
Oh, Lord. It's zero.
Yeah. So that relevance part, I think, and sometimes if you screw it too much on, it's money, I'm going to do, I'm going to hustle, I'm going to make, I'm going to provide. And then suddenly your wife gets a promotion and she out-provides.
Like there's no winning.
You realize I did put emphasis on other things. I have little to contribute.
Oh.
Everything I had is now 1% contribution.
Jesus.
And okay, even if the wife says, okay, I am not a bad person. You bring your 10 million and let's add it to my 100. What should we do with it? You have nothing to contribute.
Nothing. Because you are pursuing the money.
And then she will say, but you're not engaging.
Yeah.
Your contribution, thank you. I acknowledge. You brought some. But even where you brought it to the bigger pool, your ability
to manage
it is weak.
Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch.
You know, so the imbalance in how we have invested our time brings us to the point where we are found wanting in certain skills.
Yeah.
That's a difficult thing to take.
It's hard. It's
a difficult thing to take. You come home and your kids greet you when they are on. You've gone and hustled. And you know, this is some of the things I was telling, we were talking about with my friends, then we had a dinner with some friends of mine who were 3 couples, I think, at the time. And we sat and we had this conversation and we just said, man, you go and you hustle. You go and you work hard. The word hustle is just in print, but it will get out one day. And you come home and your kids greet you when they are
on their gadgets.
Do you have any, you understand? Or your wife greets you like remotely, like from the kitchen. Welcome back. Or greets you, yes, or greets you without, there's an element of coming and standing in front of you, looking at you, whether it's giving you a hug and everything. There's an element of the whole world needs to be dealt with. But in this moment is, you understand?
It matters.
Those things today, they matter. You understand?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think you're helping some men and
Yes.
some women.
So the relevance,
Yeah.
and you see, everyone, a lot of the men, people say, why does my man, or his wife is beautiful, but why does he? Yes, beauty does not guarantee my relevance.
It does not.
It does not.
Yeah, it does
She looks good, yes. She has all the money in the world, but she doesn't think I am relevant.
And that's a problem.
Yes, that's a problem. Okay, you're a CEO. Yes,
Yeah.
you sit on boards. Very nice.
for you.
Good for you.
Yeah.
But I am not relevant in this grand scheme of your picture.
Your life, yeah. And that's a big deal.
Yes, it's a big deal. So yes, I will talk to someone else who makes me feel that my weak jokes are relevant.
Also, why don't you come up with better jokes?
Yes. Again, it is not to justify.
That's true. Yeah.
It is just helping us to realize that this is where we are today. We can huff and puff all we want. We can cry about it. We'll have all the fora that talk about men are weak and not doing this. Yes. And then I think we will end up exactly where we are.
We are. True. The cycle will keep repeating itself.
And if we think this is a problem, can we imagine the fruit of the seed today?
Yeah.
If we think this problem is bad, a generation down, may God have mercy.
May He have mercy. May He have mercy indeed. I wanted to comment on father wounds.
Yeah.
Is that something you think, for example, men in your age category, is that something that they're still grappling with?
Yeah.
Or are there other more pressing issues, that could potentially affect their mental health?
Yeah, when you said men in my category, I was like, I'm not that old, but
you said your age, did you not?
No, but yeah, I did. I think it is.
No, you're not.
I think the reason I say our age as well is because we have. I think we're in a sweet spot. 40 to 50 is a sweet spot between fatherhood and sonhood. It's almost like you can still sway both ways well enough, and you're still agile enough, you're still flexible enough, and I think we have a significant part to contribute to the next generation. So that age group, 35, I'll say 35 to 50, we're in a sweet spot where we can do a lot to fix that. Father wounds, I think, is a huge issue, but many of us don't know. Many of us don't know that, and sometimes it's not a wound must be absolutely bad. My father should have beaten me, my father should have beaten my mother, should have divorced and everything. But I've got so many scars on my body. There's some that are big, there's some that are small, but they're all scars.
True.
We have all been scarred in one way or another.
Yeah.
I think there are certain things that are conversations we need to have. I would say father wounds, or is it really hard conversations? Yeah. Yesterday I had the pleasure of preaching a sermon on Father's Day.
Oh, at church.
And as I was preparing for it, one of the things, for the redemption of mankind, God did not show up as Ebenezer, nor as Jehovah Jireh, nor as the commander of the angel armies.
No.
He said this issue here is a father-son issue. When he looked at his majesty, he said the resolution is a father-son issue here. So whether he got all those titles and summed them up in the father, or he chose, no, this is a father-son issue. There is importance in fatherhood and sonship. Father and son, yes, there are certain conversations that ought to be had. There are times you look back and say, this thing, I did not understand why you did it. There are things there are no's that my dad said that I really did not like, and maybe there were wounds then. But now I need to go back and ask him, but why did you do this? Yeah? My wife and I have different ways of waking the children up. My wife will wake them up, and then she goes into the kitchen. Then she'll come back, and you hear her calling a couple of times. Now, the kids came and said this once. They said, you guys, you'd rather have mommy wake you up.
Really?
Because she wakes you up, then she goes. They keep getting this 5-minute snooze, the
Snooze,
snooze alarm.
yeah.
When I go to wake them up,
Yeah.
I wake them up and say, guys, I'm switching on the light.
Okay.
Then I switch on the light, and I stand
And wait for them to get out of bed.
until they get out of bed.
Yeah.
They don't like that. They really don't
They
like it.
resent it.
But I do it because I know. I know. When my mom used to wake me up, I used to snooze. I used to push the snooze button. Now, until I had certain conversations with my parents, what I thought were no's were actually them saying, you're not yet ready. You're not yet ready. My wife and I tried to go through an adoption, and my mom was like, if you guys want to have kids, have your own kids. What? And she went on, and it bothered her, and it bothered her, and it bothered. And my dad kept saying, are you sure? So we went back and forth, and then they said, okay, you guys have thought about this. That's fine. A few years later, we realized we were not ready. We were not prepared. Psychologically, we were not prepared, we were not trained, we hadn't spoken to a professional counselor, we really struggled with having to readjust how that position was going to work.
Yeah.
Now, at that point, I could have said, my father is not being supportive.
Yeah.
But when I look back, I didn't ask him the right questions.
Yeah.
I should have asked him, but why?
Yeah.
But why is this? You did this, and for me it hurt, but why did you do it? So yes, father wounds are going to be there. Some of them are actually wounds. Yes, your father beat up your mother in front of you. Yes, your father left, up and left. Yes, your father did not provide, even though he had all the money in the world. And they have to be processed. Many of us are dealing with a myriad of those. And we need to have those conversations. But there's also a space for reconciliation.
Yes.
Which is a difficult thing. And many times, many of us just don't have the grace or the energy to say, do I really want to go back and deal with this conversation? It could be worse. The truth might be difficult, but why did my father really not love me? Was I really an outcast? Was I, it has to be dealt with.
Yeah.
It has to be dealt with. And maybe it's your biological father, but there's an element of finding a father figure. You might struggle to go back to your, but then there's an element of that office. You need someone in that office to help. One of the biggest issues that men have today is we just don't have, our circles are with our peers.
Yeah.
Many of us don't have people who have gone before us to tell us there is a season in your life where you're going to go through a valley. Back up. Get enough momentum running downhill so you can run maybe halfway uphill.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what fathers do.
Fathers do.
Yeah.
In Deuteronomy, it's, they say, when your sons ask you, these testimonies, these statutes, these rules, these judgments about God, what is the story about all of this?
Yes.
You will not answer. You will not give them your answer will be look back at this experience.
Yeah.
So I think there is that element of fathers need to be good storytellers. And I think some of the father wounds are a story that has not been told in its completeness. That the reason I did this was I was wrong. I was bad. We cannot assume that all fathers are good. There are some who have had their own father wounds, their own things going on.
Yeah, that's true. Let's talk about the marriage setting and how wives can be supportive or just aware of their spouse's mental health and well-being. Again, based on our perception of women and the role that you bring to the home, which is to provide, protect, defend, there is a tendency to forget that you have some feelings there that might be hurt or some anxiety that you're dealing with. So how can wives... what role do we play in your mental health as husbands, and maybe how can we be more supportive?
I think definitely acknowledging the different times and seasons is important. Being aware of them. I think knowing that while it's the same person, the times and seasons have changed. There is also the expectation today that I want to do because you did not do. I think that's one where you have to choose. You have to choose. You have to make the decision and the commitment that this I'm going to do because this person is my spouse. So that for me is also an underlying principle.
Yeah.
Do you get tired? Yes. Our wives tired today. I've heard how tired women are, and I acknowledge how much they've put in.
Yeah.
They've been forced into a place that they really should not be. It is difficult to argue for the men's case sometimes.
Yeah.
It's been a bit difficult, but by God's grace we'll get better. So I think there is definitely the element of understand the times and the seasons that your spouse is going through. Understand that and be able to know how to support and help. I think wives, particularly, especially when things are going well, don't bring your work home. What do I mean? You're a CEO. Yes. You're a chair of the board. Very nice. Don't bring your work home. Yeah. Be mindful of your tone. Be mindful of your language. There is boardroom language.
Boardroom language, yeah.
Yeah. That easily slips into the home. This is actually a very difficult decision, but it has to be made. You understand? Yes, I know it is a difficult decision. Yeah. Again, I say that with the underlying principle I started with, to say that this generation we are still dealing with a couple of things.
Yeah.
We're not at I will be the first to say we're not at our best footing for the most part, and we need to get better. But that is why exactly we need this help where the spouses are. So another one in terms of, like I was saying, don't bring your work home. Come home as a wife. Your spouse needs someone to talk to, someone to be a friend. Don't try to fix.
Okay.
Don't try to fix. Yeah. Will your help be needed? Yes. Don't try to fix. Yeah. You try to fix almost like I'm trying to sort you out. You have failed.
Organize you.
Yes, to organize you. Now there is a way a wife can influence.
Okay.
But not fix. You understand? Yeah. When you say fix, it's like you're broken and I'm going to patch you up.
Together.
Yes. But influence is, there are certain nice things that we are doing that can be, you understand? It's a very different, you could end up at the same result.
Yeah.
But one of them will give you a different person at that result.
That's true. Yeah.
You might still build the same house. It's a very different way in fixing versus influencing. Again, it's almost like a submission versus obedience argument. It's almost like it's the same word, but they're not synonyms.
Yeah.
Yeah? They're not synonyms.
Yeah.
Create a space where have these conversations. How are you doing? As I was telling my wife, when I come back, I am not a very demanding person. By very many standards, I don't ask for much. But when I come home, in that moment, I want to feel, when I come home, the world has stopped.
Oh, okay.
Yeah? I want to come on. When you say, it is very difficult to say, oh man, you're the king of my heart, when I don't feel the kingship. Yeah, you understand.
You come home and it's like a regular person has come.
Yeah, like John from The Neighbor, or Jacob, the neighbor's son, showed up. You understand? No, it's not. Yeah. It is come home and pay attention. Pay attention. Yeah. And and that is just make the environment know that it's not just about you, it's also the children. The children will mimic what you're doing.
Oh, yes.
No matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
If they see you being busy while you will, something's going to happen. But why are you complaining? Mommy gets away with it. What are you complaining about? So have that environment there.
Yeah.
Create the space to have those conversations. Really have the conversations about, how are you feeling? What are the things that are stressing you? Pay attention. At this point in time, and this is almost like a cheat, at this point in time, men's careers, their quote-unquote side gigs, their businesses, at this point in time, they have a very different weight. They have a very different weight. what is he doing? Is he consulting? Is he working? Is doing what? That work matters now more than much more before. Why? Because that work is a source of many things, a source of affirmation. Am I doing it right? Again, if I use that bracket, at this age, are you getting promoted up the ranks or not? That is an issue of validation in the workplace. Are you delivering? Is the fruit in this time of the seeds you sowed 5-10 years ago does the fruit begin to look good, or is the fruit corrupted? So a lot of those things, the workplace has a lot of that coming in. The business you're starting, is this the right path? Is it, so there is that element of really finding out the work, particularly the work is going to be a source of, and if you look, a lot of the pressure is going to be in the workplace. It's going to come out of the workplace because you spend a lot of the time there. Yeah. Now, if your husband is unwell or is manifesting certain signs of mental wellness or unwellness at home, it is a mirror in the workplace. It just manifests differently. If your husband is coming back and talking about, so listen for what is unsaid. If your husband is talking about they are fighting with their boss, there is most likely going to be some sort of fight. There's an extension. The root of why they are fighting is going to manifest differently in your marriage. And if you pay attention, it's probably going to be something you're dealing with in your marriage.
There's a connection.
Yes. If I'm a poor communicator, I communicate poorly at work and at home.
For sure.
It simply manifests differently. So there are certain unsaid things that just pay attention to them. Unsaid conversations. There are things, so there is an element of not being psychic, but it's almost like triggers that allow you rope. There's rope that will toss occasionally. Again, fundamentally, we struggle with articulating certain things. So it's going to take you a bit more than the conventional, but I'm here, you didn't say anything. That's just not going. It's not going to work as effectively. So it's going to be a lot of unsaid things. Snap. Someone is snapping at the driver, snapping at everyone else. There is a certain frustration. What is it? Is it just time to just relax? Sometimes it might not be an issue. It might just be, but one of the time this man took a break. When did he go and leave? But the man takes a break, has traveled, then you say, no, we have to go. We are going to church. After church, we're going to go here. Then we're going to here. We have to visit. Hey, we need to be there. We are hosting people. Hey, you understand? Then you wonder why this person always seems edgy because they're unrested, or they're complaining about not resting, or when they are saying they want to go on holiday, they're saying I want to go on holiday with you alone, no one else.
You're like, we must bring the children.
Oh Lord, you must bring the children. Yikes! They don't have to go everywhere.
My kids.
So being able to also create those spaces where it is just you and him to just say, let me try but it fundamentally, it's also rooted in the intentionality to want to listen. The intentionality to say, you know what, let me, quote unquote, if you're very busy, be intentional to say, I'm going to have Thursday where I come home early, where I'm going to decide, I will put in a cup of tea, it doesn't have to be fancy. And I just want to sit down, and the act of that is going to communicate, I am willing to listen, and whatever it is. You don't have to ask what's going on.
Just create the environment.
Just create the environment. And your spouse is also, you say things that if someone is dealing with something, it's as if they are looking for someone, especially men. It's like, I'm looking for someone who is willing to listen. But create the environment. Did you pay attention? Did you pick up when I called? Did you do this? And now, if you take a parallel to why is my husband spending so much time here or there, it is simply because those people took advantage of, but we were there. He wanted to watch football and we were there. You understand? So it is an element of how do men communicate sometimes? And can women be intentional to say, okay, it's a different style. It's not the way we do. It's not, it's clearly not the same way. It's not going to be, we're going to sit in a circle and no, men can sit here and we talk for 10 hours and everyone goes back with his problems. Like we dumped our problems there, we came here, we laughed about how Arsenal has never won, how the shelf is dusty, this person, the new Mpenkoni is better than the old one, but the Mpenkoni that is not as fast as the patrol, When we are leaving, we'll pick up our
your
problems
and
go
home.
with them. Not once, not twice.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard the statement, but what do you men talk about?
You talk about. Heck. And then you come back with the same problems.
Come back home with the same problem. Happier, but with the same problems.
Happier, really? Because if there's passive aggression happening in the home, you're going to come back and continue with that
That
passive
is it. We
aggression.
picked it up. Yeah, we'll pick it up at the entrance. I was laughing with my friends, but I'm coming back to give you some aggression. It is not, again, it is not right.
No, it's not.
It is not right. But one thing I'll also I'll say that there is a space where wives you kind of need to ask your husband, who are you talking to? When was the last time you had coffee with Jackson?
Because you know Jackson would be good for him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who do you listen to? Understand? Who are you submitting to? Who is the authority above you that you're submitting to? Yes, there is God. There is a father as well. There is a father figure who can tell you, shut up, and you actually do.
Yeah. Yeah.
If those things are missing, you have a different problem coming for you as a wife.
You do.
You know?
Yeah.
So there is an element of try and influence, nudge your husband towards who are you talking? Because there's some things that sometimes we might struggle with, and I'm not yet ready to tell my wife for different reasons. Also because of the kind of person that she is. Now, the other element is that your spouse you cannot do everything.
Yeah.
Cannot. So they might listen, which is good, and you should talk to them. But there's some things that you might struggle to package well. There might be some things that are struggles that you probably want to get through and maybe put a disclaimer to say, you know what, but there's something I'm dealing with, but I'm not yet ready to talk about it.
Yeah.
But have somewhere that you can.
You're dumping it, yes. Yeah.
Somewhere that is safe enough.
Yeah.
Or, you know what, but let that conversation, if it was a conversation between husband and wife, the wife say, look, okay, I hear you, I understand that, but who are you talking to about it? Okay, you're talking to Jackson about this issue? Okay, Jackson is someone that we trust, whose values we uphold. We hold the same values. Okay, that's fine. Let's check in and see if you're making progress on it. You don't have to tell me if you're not ready. Okay, this thing you've been talking about, how is that going? Sometimes it is you're in the office and there's some new chick who has come.
Okay.
You understand? And yet at home, you don't have someone who is not helping you to pay attention to this conversation. So for me, that creating that space should help the men to kind of have
open
that
up.
conversation.
Yeah. I want us to end with something that you have alluded to on community and friendships for men.
Yeah.
I think I want you to emphasize how important that is, but not just having a community, because like you said, you guys get together and talk about cars. You talk about everything else except your problems.
Yeah.
How can that environment be used to have, like, offload as men? It doesn't have to be the group of 20 men.
Yeah.
Maybe you're choosing 3 or 4 of the 20, but talk about community and its importance in supporting men with their mental health. But also, there's a question I had wanted to ask you earlier on what real strength means. I think that needs to be emphasized in many of these spaces.
Yeah.
To kind of counter what you have had, the problematic things you had when you were growing up. And then for men who are watching to know, me holding on to my anxiety and my depression and my stress may not really be a display of strength. It might be for like the first month, but then if I'm failing to manage it, then I'm not really displaying strength. So I want you to speak to those two things and end with that.
I think for me, the display of strength, I think one of the most important things is understanding responsibility. Now, I'll draw a parallel with responsibility for your mental health. Responsibility for everything is including your mental health. It's a responsibility. However much people put things out there, we air these things, everything, at the end of the day, the responsibility lies with you. Now, in the absence of understanding responsibility is where now this becomes a problem. For me, I am a victim. Yeah, for me, it sounds a bit harsh, but if the root, if the foundation was as a man, I am responsible. I am responsible to provide. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm always going to be the one with the biggest check. No, it doesn't mean I have responsibility to protect. I have responsibility to do all these different things. I think the pressure has come from, because it's my responsibility, I must be the 51%, and my wife, I must be 100%. At the very least, I must never go below 51%. Yeah, which is not. Which is not the case. But that responsibility is there for me, is one of the greatest elements of strength. If you look at a parallel in the workplace, your responsibility is to deliver the results as a manager, as an example. But you don't do it yourself.
No.
There are people around you that help you to get things done. That principle works. The workplace is evidence that it works. So responsibility is the same principles work with everything else. So as a man, the responsibility to provide, it is yours. It doesn't mean that you cannot get help from your wife. It doesn't take, you see, we almost make it seem like it's either 100% responsibility or zero.
Or zero, yeah.
Which is not the case. Yeah. So that for me is one. I think vulnerability is another one. Vulnerability doesn't necessarily mean crying. And we've almost said that you're either vulnerable crying or you're not. We have such extremism in it. You know, it's almost this or nothing. You know, so vulnerability is being able to just have that conversation and being able to do that. I would say that a true strength is bouncing back. Real men bounce back. It doesn't mean that you don't get beat down. It doesn't mean you don't get beat down. It doesn't mean you don't fall down. The reason men are raised differently from women, why people keep saying, let the boys climb the trees and break and fall down and break bones, is because we are teaching the boy to fall and get up again. Today, if our sons are spending time on video games, curled up, they don't know the element of heart. They don't know the element of falling. That's why I keep telling people, put your children in sports or something competitive. Sport is what I know. And when they compete, they must never accept a certificate of participation.
Why not?
Because it is mediocrity. All of us came. So you have to get something. No. It is either number one, number two, or number three.
The rest of you.
The rest of you work harder. That is the reality. For us to think that you came 1,000 and we are going to acknowledge your participation.
Certificates.
Yes. No. There's a school of thought that justifies it. That's fine. I don't agree with it. You know, for me, it's they must know that you lost. Today, you know, again, and I don't want to seem insensitive, people who are dealing with it. And I said it with the utmost humility and with the utmost respect. But most of the time, it is someone got beat down and they just don't know to come back up. Life threw a huge brick at you. You don't know how to come back from that. I keep telling my kids, and every child that I have the opportunity to talk to, when they're in sport, when you lose, shake the hand of the opponent and tell them thank you for the game. The person wins and you say, well done. Walk across and say, well done. When you play sport, the reason people shake hands after the game is to say, I could not do this on my own. Lionel Messi would not be the world's greatest footballer if he was playing alone. He needs other people. He can only be seen to be good if there are other bad people.
This is true.
You understand? So the element of shaking someone's hand is saying, thank you for being on this field with me. So they must, you know, that element of falling down and breaking teaches our children to fall, to fail.
And bounce back.
So for me, true strength is bouncing back. Does it mean you always have it figured out? No. True strength, masculinity, is also submission. It's also submission. You know, people have said, oh, you know, the wife must submit, blah, blah, blah. They say the Bible says men must submit. But what it doesn't say is that Jesus submitted to the will of the Father. When he cried, people know Jesus said, oh, this cup of suffering, may it be passed from me. But if it is your will, may it be done. That is submission.
That is submission.
So when it says love the church as Christ loved the church, he loved it enough to submit to the will of the Father.
Yeah.
So for me, true strength, true masculinity is also in submission. That's why I ask, to whom does your husband submit? In the workplace, he submits to the boss. And outside? To whom?
Good question.
So for me, there's that element of submission, because someone to whom you submit also sees when you are breaking.
Yeah.
They will go ahead of you. So for me, I would say broadly, I would say those are the four main things. You must be able to submit to someone, because you cannot be the be it and know it all. You can't. And most people who get to that point think they're the first person to go through it. And because they can't figure it out, they don't have the vulnerability to say, I don't know. Can I find help? And, oh, it is my responsibility. I must. Why? Because I know that men fall and men rise
and
again.
Then they come back up. Yeah.
No matter what happens, at the end of this all, the back ends with me. It's my responsibility. Is it easy? No. Responsibility does not mean ease. No. Responsibility is tough.
Yeah.
It is hard.
Yeah.
But it's yours.
Embrace it.
Embrace it.
Yeah.
So being able to be vulnerable and ask for help, for me, is something that I think is a lot stronger now for men, as a pillar of strength now, than it probably was before. But also strength looks different now than it did before. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think I didn't expect you to talk about submission. I think it's impressive that is a mark of strength. Because for you to be able to, like you've said, somebody says, shut up, and you shut up.
Yeah.
Or somebody says, come, we need to talk, and you are humble enough to come, I think is a true display of strength. This has been a wonderful conversation. I want to give you the opportunity to share your parting shots and encourage the men who are watching, but also encourage the women. I think my husband keeps saying that he has learned a lot about women from being married. But I think I've also learned a lot about men from being married.
Yeah.
I think in the beginning, because I never paid attention to my husband like that, my feelings were the reference point, and it's all that mattered.
Yes.
When my husband told me he was hurt, I actually low-key laughed. I'd be like, how are you hurt?
Yeah.
Because I'm the one expressing myself, you know.
Yes.
I feel like many times as women, because we are emotional beings, we rely on our emotions.
Yes.
And in so doing, we forget that there's another party who has emotions, he just doesn't express them
the way
that you do.
Yeah.
And men and women are vastly different, but it's something that I think we need to keep reinforcing.
Yeah.
So I want you to speak both to the men, encourage them about, mental health and the things that they are dealing with, and then to the women on how they can be supportive.
So without going back and talk about the strength and what it looks like, I think for men, we are in uncharted territory.
Yeah.
Uncharted territory. It's new territory for us and for the world, even for the wives that we are going to ask for help from. It's new territory for us, but we are here.
Yeah.
So the first thing is that we are here. It is what it is. It has to be dealt with. Yeah, and we have to take the responsibility. That for me is I cannot overemphasize the use of responsibility. It's our responsibility. Our mental health. It's our responsibility. We need to figure it out.
Yeah.
We don't know. So let's take this as a learning curve.
Yeah.
I think for me that it's a learning curve, and just say I'm going to grow through what this is. I think for me that's an important thing. It's responsibility. I'm going to grow through it.
Yep.
There are certain things that I do not know. There are many things as men we do not know. So let's. One of my friends I met. I'm calling my friends. I'm name dropping, but Samuel Bakutana said, when you look at the learning spaces today, men are
Yeah.
absent.
Yeah.
Go for conferences that are not men's conferences. Go for conferences, workshops, trainings. Men are absent.
Mostly the women.
It's mostly the
Yeah.
women.
Yeah.
So as men, we've stopped learning, or we've slowed our rate of learning, or we've put the responsibility of learning in someone else's hands. If you don't give it to me, I'm not going to look for it. So we are finding ourselves in this place because we have not learned enough about certain things.
Yeah.
So responsibility is ours. We can, if we choose to, and if we commit to, we can learn through this as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, the reason I say with responsibility is we need to do it, if not for ourselves,
For your children.
for our children
Yeah.
and their children.
Yeah.
Because if we do nothing about it, if we are as ignorant as we are, what about the ones who are coming after us?
What will you pass on to
What
them?
will we pass on to them? So there's an element where, mental health or not, we must.
That's true.
We must. If, again, for us as men, another thing is we don't know. We don't know how to articulate our emotion. So we're emotionally illiterate.
I agree.
Yeah, emotionally illiterate. We need to build out our bank of how do we actually express our emotions,
Yeah.
and how and to whom, and then we need to find a place. We're not the first. You're not the first to be upset. You're not the first to lose all your money. You're not the first to be robbed. You're not the first to get divorced. You're not the first to lose your job. You're not the first to make losses, and you will not be the last.
You won't. Yeah.
But someone has gone before you. Someone has gone before you. There is help. There is someone who has done this before. You're not the first one. We are not the first. So we need to find that help. We need to ask and say, who else has done this before? Who can I talk to? And if you have no one to talk to, that's a red flag. If you have no one to talk to, that's a red flag. Find someone.
Yeah.
Even if it is to say, Rachel, I have no one to talk to.
Yeah. It's a starting point.
It's a starting point.
Yeah.
I have got no one to talk to. For the wives, I think when God said, "I'll make a helper," now is the time to call on that. Help. You know, I think we're in a generation that needs help.
Yeah.
I think there is a lot more on the wives' plate than we thought or than we would like, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
We don't move from here without your help.
Yeah.
You know, there is a real place both wives and mothers play in being intentional in helping the sons know, in helping their daughters understand. You know, how do you do some of these things, but also being intentional in getting fathers to father their sons and pushing sons to their fathers very deliberately. I've got a friend who she doesn't sit in the front. She pushes her eldest son to sit in the front with the father.
Okay.
Begin to learn, have your conversation. I don't know what it is. I don't know to what end, but it's a start.
Okay.
You know, so there are small things like that I think will be, but the help from wives, from mothers, and women in leadership, is going to be important. There is a lot. It's very easy to skew female leadership to help another woman, but make sure that as you're helping the woman, they are going to relate with the man.
Yeah.
So that balance as well, the women in female leadership, is to also understand that, you know, make sure that balance doesn't get tipped out of balance as well. Yeah.
One last thing. I know I said these were your parting shots, but I have found that under conversations like these ones where we are focusing on men, there'll be one or two people who are like, why is it always what we are doing for the men, what we are doing for the men this, men that, men this? And when I see comments like that, I imagine that it's a reflection of what is going on in their lives.
Yes.
That maybe in their home, the playing field is not leveled.
Yeah.
And maybe hasn't been for a very long time.
Yeah.
They feel like they're picking up the slack and there's a man somewhere just seated, putting up his feet unbothered.
Yeah.
Since we are in this month talking about men's mental health, I think that might also be a cry for help.
Yes.
And I want you to speak to that there are men who are not behaving themselves, and that is their way of saying, I am not okay. But as women, we take it as this man is not being a man.
Yes.
Like he's not he's not providing, he's not going out there to look for work. We have so much unresolved conflict, and there's so many things that are being swept under the rug, and we're fighting all the time. And so we have created that tired wife, the weary wife. And yet there's a man here who is not doing this because he's lazy. He's saying, I don't know what's going on from the inside of me. So I want you to, I don't even know what I want you to do, but I want you to speak to that.
I'll use that example you've used, a wife or someone that has cried out that I'm always pouring out. Let me take one step back. You didn't choose that person in that state.
That's true.
So if you made the choice of someone who sits and does nothing, if you made the choice at that point, you can't complain about it now. Let's first put that principle.
That's also true,
if you met this person, they sit in the chair, they watch TV, they don't work, they don't contribute, but you said you loved them, you got married to them, and now you're complaining. You don't have the right to complain, really, because you knew what you were bargaining for. So we don't like it, but that's a reality. That's number one. Number two, a second scenario. You found this person doing all these different things, and suddenly they changed. Something caused that change. And you need to figure it out. I don't know what that is. It could be a ton of things. Okay? A lot of the scenarios that I've seen like this are when wives have begun to say, but I'm the one who is doing this. Now, back to the point of don't try to fix it versus influence. There are men who will take the passive aggression route. Hey, so now you think you can provide. Let me leave everything to you. Again, which is not justified and is horrible, but we see men who are doing that today. Okay? Now, very many wives now go to the fix it part and start to do, which is not a problem. We have 4 sets of hands. Let us do something, you know. And the Proverbs 31 wife was an entrepreneur. She did certain things. So there's an expectation that wives will do. But then you start to talk to this man as what he is, not who you're going to get him to be, who you're going to influence him to be. Which goes back to the, you know, with the joke we keep cracking with, it has manifested differently, but it's the same thing. These guys who pushes wheelbarrows downtown, the Vigalis, that man can push and come back with half a kilo of beans. And his wife will say, you man.
Commander.
Stop. Please,
General.
please. Where is this man? The chair. Has this man, you understand? But what are you dealing with? Because the way we are designed, we yearn for that affirmation. Whether we like it or we don't like it, I am not the creator. God created us that way. You understand? That man walks in, his wife says, welcome back. Even if you have no, and she sweeps the floor and says, sit. Thank you. These are the beans you brought. You brought half a kilo. The same mouth which was going to tell him, how could you bring beans? The same mouth, the same energy is being invested differently. That man will sit for 2 minutes, catch his breath, go back out and bring a kilo of meat. You understand? The first thing is, do the men have the ability? Does this person who you're saying sits in a corner, does he have the ability? For any help to happen, it's 2 things. Do you have the ability? Do you have the willingness? What that man is doing is he has the ability. You see the potential. But he doesn't have the willingness. He's not willing.
And something changed.
Something changed. Now, again, their wives, part of the gift, part of why this person allowed in the first place was there was something you kept seeing. You got him to see himself as a husband, as you got him to see him as someone who could provide for you, as someone who could help you. But when he got to that point, you stopped seeing him any further. So he got there and said, "You mean
I'm not
this
anymore?"
is it? There are times where, and wives, reset who you see your husband to be. And get him to chase that man. You see, if you keep telling me why I didn't provide, you are keeping me in the present.
This is true.
You understand?
Yeah.
But why didn't you? You know, we don't have bills. These bills, that is the reality.
Yeah.
That is yes, I understand that. I am not oblivious to it. This man knows he has not paid school fees, and yet he used to.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
But there's a place where you must begin to say, but this man is now the king. I have got a sister-in-law who she calls her husband king. Now, when she started it,
You were all
we used to say,
it's not going to last.
stop. But then we realized she's serious and she's not backing down from it. And when she says my king, and sometimes now he realizes, so he also first he first choose like I did that he has not heard. Then she says, no, but my Lord, what is the, you understand? But I have also seen him step up
to that position. Yeah. Yeah.
You understand? It's impossible for you to be the king and this one is not the queen. You understand? It's not impossible. There's some who have gone up, but then, again, we cannot be oblivious to that truth. That is what it is. But for me, I would say, for the wives that are saying, look, my husband is not, you are talking at your husband.
Yeah.
You are probably talking to and trying to fix. Try and influence.
It's a difference.
It's a difference.
Yeah.
Try and give him something to aspire to. Tell him who you see him as. Tell him who you see him as. Does it mean that the minute you say today is going to change tomorrow? No.
No.
But I can guarantee you one thing. Continue talking at him or trying to fix him. Going backwards.
Many steps backwards.
It will most likely not going to work.
Yeah.
No chance.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Junior. Now we are done, for real. We're done. Thank you for joining us. I feel like you've represented the men ably.
You.
They'll let us know in the comments.
Yeah, let's see what they say.
Share your feedback on this episode. I saw a WhatsApp status yesterday about a memo that had been sent out to women, this Men's Mental Health Month. And there was a list of things that we are not supposed to be doing. Don't remind him about the bills he hasn't paid. Don't question him about, I don't know who he's talking to in WhatsApp. The one that cracked me up is, this is not the time to tell him about the dream where you saw him cheating. Like in your dreams, you saw him cheating. Like, this is not the month to bring it up. Like all the things that we usually lay on our husbands and our men, our brothers, let's reserve them, I guess, for other months, or maybe even evaluate the stuff that we bring in conversation to the men in our lives. To all the men that are watching, this episode is dedicated to you. I hope that it has been helpful in just questioning how you approach your own mental health. I think the overarching theme has been, it is your responsibility. We are here to support you, but it is still your responsibility. Until next week, stay well, stay healthy. We'll see you again on Reality Check. Bye-bye.